Hi, this is Dr. Barbara Young. Welcome to the Transformation Success Television Network, and this is the Empowerment Channel. First of all, I want to thank all of the guests out there in the audience for coming today in the studio. We're so happy you're here. Thank you for coming. Boy, do we have a show for you today. So I want you to call your friends, tell them they've got to watch this show. It's going to be uploaded in about a week or two on the Voice America TV channel. We have something exciting to talk about, but it's a little serious. So I want to, first of all, tell you that our comments are ours uniquely to own and share. You may disagree or you may not. You may agree or you may disagree, but they are ours to share. So I'm welcoming my panel today on a discussion that is a little difficult for many of you that may be watching this show. We're going to talk about workforce violence, workplace violence. And really, it is something that is growing every day. We are hearing about shootings. We're hearing about things that happen in the workplace. But we're going to take it a little bit farther than that today. We're going to show you the scope of what workplace violence really encapsulates. So, first of all, I want to thank my guests for being on the show today. And first of all, we have Dave Weiner. So, Dave, tell us who you are and what you do.
So, my name's Dave Weiner. I'm the CEO of a company called Secure Meausres, LLC. It's a risk management and advisory firm here in the Los Angeles area. I retired from law enforcement earlier this year after 26 years. So I have a lot of depth and breadth and knowledge in this particular topic that we're going to discuss today. Looking forward to it, and again, having me back on. Thank you for having me back on the show.
Thank you. This is great. He was on last week. We had another subject about veterans. So this week we're about workplace violence. So, all right. And my next guest, Miss Imani Hayes. Tell us what you do, Imani.
Well, I am a respite care provider, but that's by day. By night, I'm an entertainer. I act, sing, dance, and do comedy. So I'm here to just have a conversation that I think is necessary. And for a lot of people, a lot of millennials like me, we want to have these open conversations. And it's very interesting that we have this particular group of people here today.
Well, that's why I wanted you on the show. We want to not leave out the millennials because you have absolutely a part to play as we play out the drama of our lives. And I'm telling you, it's drama.
Drama.
And then my new co-host I'm introducing today.
Hello.
I have to say, Miss Kim Yeater. Did I do it right?
You did great. Give me some skin. That was excellent.
I told her before I didn't want to mess up your name. So she said, Yeater, like Yeater.
Yay!
So tell us what you do.
So I'm a peak performance transformation coach, a speaker, and author, actually upcoming author of the book, Run Your Race and Discover Your True Identity.
I love that.
And documentary filmmaker of One Voice, Many Faces, breaking the cycle of domestic violence and breaking the cycle of victim.
Wow. And she's going to be back because we got a show that we're going to be talking about domestic violence, and so that's coming up in a few weeks. So yeah.
Yes.
So all right, back to our topic today. So Dave, tell us, with your corporation, with your company, what is it that you do, and how serious are we now? And explain the scope and the depth that we're really dealing with.
So my company helps organizations build prevention programs around workplace violence. That's a big issue. Obviously, I want to say in 2017 there were 346 mass shootings in the United States.
What?
But the thing that doesn't get discussed a lot of times is there was also another 18,000 assaults in the workplace. So when you start looking at the scope and magnification of a workplace violence incident, it's not just about the shooting, and those are the things that unfortunately get blasted all over the news. I'm sure you guys have all seen those on the news. The other things that you don't see are the, from a business perspective, brand issues. Then you have lost time, lost wages, insurance claims, and that can go into the billions of dollars. Companies that are spending time, because when these incidents happen, even if it's something as simple as an assault, of two employees, one assaults the other. Well, if that person's injured, now they're out of work. You have to figure out who's going to do their work. There's a lot of implications for not having a prevention program. And the Society for Human Resource Management has said that 1 in 5 human resource professionals don't know really what to do when they're confronted with a workplace violence incident. And that's kind of where I come in, and other professionals like me come in to help advise companies and organizations on how to better identify workplace violence issues and how to then prevent them, and having the appropriate policies, training, and procedures in place.
Well, I have a question, because it's like your why. How did you happen to get into this? I mean, I know your background's been in law enforcement for many, many years, and you are a military veteran of the Air Force. I know that.
Yes.
So, but how did you, sort of transition? You retired and you transitioned now into dealing with this issue.
Well, even after retiring, after 26 years in law enforcement, where, my true desire was to serve people and to help people. And that's kind of an overused term, but, when you really want to serve the community, that's one of the best places to do it in law enforcement, fire service, EMS. That's really, you get to do a lot of good. And even after retiring, I'm still pretty young, and I still have a lot of energy left. So I wanted to continue to give back, and use all the knowledge that I actually acquired over the many, many, many years, and now turn it into something that.
But why workforce violence? I mean, was there someone you knew that was a victim?
Well, over the years, having been in law enforcement and the military, I've responded to many workplace violence incidents, and you get to see on the backside of things the trauma that it causes to people. And if people, they say, an ounce of prevention, is a pound of cure.
Right.
If people would really stop and take a look at what they have in place to help prevent those type of things in the workplace, if I could get one company to change some of their policies and really be a little bit more proactive as it relates to taking care of their employees, then I've done my job.
So Matt, what are the symptoms, or what are the things we look for to really prevent workplace violence?
Sure. So, and that's a great question. And I'll list a few things, but one of them by themselves may not. If you have an employee who's a really good employee, let's say, in some places we have really good employees, in some places we have really bad employees, right? But if you have a really good employee who all of a sudden starts to have performance issues, and then all of a sudden they're coming to work late, and then you're starting to notice they're dressing differently, they're not their usual self, that could be an indicator that something's going on. Not to say that's an indicator of workplace violence, but that's an indicator to the rest of everybody else to go, something's not right here. And in a lot of cases, it's something's not right here. All of a sudden, an employee who's never had any discipline issues starts having discipline issues, and then all of a sudden starts having a fascination with violent acts on the news, and it's really out of character, out of behavior. And those are very general type of things to look for. But if you start to see things that don't add up with that particular person, coworkers work a lot together, and especially nowadays, and in places like Silicon Valley, where you have open areas where everybody's working together. You're going to be more noticed of things rather than if somebody's always separated by their offices, right? It used to be in the old days. We've also seen a change where it's kind of going back to that now. They're getting away from those open floor plans because they say it doesn't actually let people collaborate anymore.
So if I'm in the workplace, right? I'm in my corporate job and I see this behavior with a coworker. What steps do I want to take? Maybe I don't want to ruffle feathers, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, what would you advise me to do?
Well, the first step is there's nothing wrong with reaching out to that person and going, hey, is everything okay? Right?
Yeah. That's good.
We all talk a lot about caring for your fellow human being, right?
Yes.
The best way to show that is to go, hey, Bob, John, whatever your name is, showing that compassion, exactly, and saying, hey, is there anything I can help you with? Most workplace violence incidents start with a grievance of some kind. So there's, whether it's against the company or a specific person or something along those lines, every one of these things always starts with some type of a grievance. So if somebody just got disciplined for something they feel was unfair, and now they're angry about it, and now they're storming around the office, maybe that might be a good time. Because a lot of time people with grievances, they just want to be heard. They want their story to be told. And if they don't feel people are listening to them, then that becomes a real challenge. So lending a sympathetic ear to somebody can definitely be helpful. That doesn't mean you agree with anything they're saying, and you don't have to agree with anything they're saying. You just need to show their support, and that can actually help de-escalate somebody's behavior to a degree.
But I have a question too that adds to that, because recently in the news, as we all know, we heard about the incident in Virginia Beach. They could not determine, because he didn't have a grudge, it's that I've learned so far, or why he did what he did, because there were no symptoms, there was no sign that he was angry, and then he committed this assault and killed these people on the job. I'm sure you kind of followed that case.
I've followed that case, and I will say that one article that hasn't been widely published, or hasn't been, and again, I'm an avid user of LinkedIn, as many people
All the
are.
LinkedIn people out there.
And a colleague had shared with me an article where that gentleman actually was involved in an altercation at least a day or two before
Interesting.
with somebody in the workplace. There's always a sign,
It's a
and
prompt.
there's a misnomer with the term snapped. Nobody just snaps.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
always things
build
leading
up.
It's a
up
build
to
up to that snap.
It's definitely, and that's a great way to describe it. There's definitely a build up to a shooting incident or something along those lines. And all along the way, there's indicators, and you can, if you're able to interdict or disrupt during all those indicators, there's a good chance that you're able to deter another workplace violence incident or another shooting.
That is so good.
Wow.
Some years ago, I know I worked in a corporate setting, and I participated when this first became an issue. We had workplace violence workshops and seminars in terms of telling you what you needed to do. Are those still being taken, seriously? And
Yeah.
Absolutely.
are they still being conducted?
Yes. There are, and I've seen podcasts and I've seen webinars and things that are being put out. I do training of that nature. People tend to focus on the active shooter portion of things a lot. Like everybody wants active shooter training, and that's great. But we really need to start focusing more on prevention and assessing threats and understanding what the prevention angle of it. And that's really what I focus on. If you're focusing on active shooter training, that's great. And you should know what to do. If somebody comes into your workplace with a gun, I'm not discounting that. But a lot of things have failed along the way. And if now that's occurred. So focusing on the prevention efforts and giving people tools. And it's not just one person in an organization that's responsible for prevention of workplace violence. You have human resources, you have risk management,
Absolutely.
you have corporate security, you have a lot of folks. It's really a collaborative effort between a lot of different people to assess and figure out what's going on in a workplace and how to mitigate those violent.
And it starts with compassion. I feel like you have to, like you said, they come into work, they're late, their dress is different, their attitude is different, just the way that they're engaging. And it's just like you should be able to say, hey, John, are you doing well today? What's going on? For the past couple of weeks, you haven't really been doing your best work. I just want to know if you're okay. And it goes back to that grievance situation.
But there's another point I'm bringing up too, and I'm being the advocate, because today we're operating in such silos that even it transcends to the workplace, because even in our neighborhoods and communities, we don't even know our neighbors.
That's
Things could be
good.
happening. A man's beating his wife, and you're not going to
You
go over
didn't
it because
even
you don't
know.
want to interfere, or you don't want to, get involved. And so I think that there's something pervasive in terms of what's happening with the human condition, that people don't seem to be that sensitive, let me put it that way, or have the empathy. So I don't know, we're going to talk about this in another show, about it. We have a growing number of narcissistic people.
Oh, honey, that's a tea
that
sipper.
just don't care. They don't have the empathy.
Yeah.
So I just kind of threw that out there, because I know in a lot of the corporate situations they have the cubicles, and people are in their little cubicles.
Little cube.
They're in
And
their own world.
they're in their own
Yeah.
world. And I just heard statistically from a person who talked to us in the green room about how the millennials have their earbuds
Or
and
earpods.
and they're listening and they're working, but they're in their own world. So they don't see John or Susie coming in stressed out. They don't really care. I mean, I don't mean it to say it that way.
No, it is kind of like that. I mean, we're in our own world. There's social media. We have our phones. We're connected literally into a small space. That's why people think we're zombies or we're just like not paying attention. But that's actually not even true. It's just, we just have a new way of communication.
Yeah.
And it's just a new way to look at things.
And there's a major disconnection occurring.
Oh, absolutely.
So with all the technology, and that's a whole other subject.
That's another
That is-
4-hour conversation.
People aren't connected anymore. There's
No.
no more authenticity and relationships. And so in the workplace, with what you do, are you educating and empowering the human resources, the leaders that be, how to create that space where people can talk about what's really going on?
The safe space.
The safe space, and create relationship, create connectedness.
So in some places I've worked, and to kind of finish up this last part of the conversation, is, in some cases not noticing people is one thing, but then you have a different demographic of people who are like, I don't want to get involved. I don't know what's going on over here. I don't want to get involved.
Distancing
I don't want to
myself.
I'm going to distance myself because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to get wrapped up. And you see a lot of that because I think in general people have their own problems, their own issues. But really, I firmly believe, and this is again my opinion, is that the CEO of a company, I retired as the chief of police of my agency. Everything started with that leader, with that one leader in an organization, and that creates your company culture.
That's right.
And
That's
if your
exactly
company
right.
culture allows and tolerates violent acts or different types of things,
Bullying?
then you're bullying is another
does
one.
happen.
Sexual harassment is another one. The
Oh,
Me Too
my
movement is
goodness.
a huge thing right now, and rightfully so. But you as a leader have to empower your junior leaders in order to make those decisions, and in some cases that doesn't always happen, right? Sometimes you have a leader who's a little bit of a micromanager and doesn't allow their staff to do certain things.
Right.
Coming from the government space, I would say a lot of our policies and procedures were very old and outdated and antiquated and didn't allow leaders to have a certain measure of flexibility to take care of folks. I'm not saying that's the case in every place. I'm just saying that spending so much time in government and public safety agencies, sometimes your policies and procedures need to be updated to keep up with the times.
Right.
As we've seen, the law moves much slower than technology.
Yeah, boy.
We see this with a lot of other things like drones, and everybody has a
Right.
drone,
Yeah.
but the laws haven't caught up with that, and that's one good
Right,
example
right.
of how technology has run way
That's privacy
ahead.
invasion right there.
It could be in
In a
certain
sense.
it could be in certain circumstances, but the problem is who's to say, right? Because there's no law hasn't caught
There's
up
no
yet.
regulation.
And but the FAA is now starting to heavily regulate that stuff, and I know we're diving off topic a little
Sorry.
bit, but the real issue is that unfortunately the law doesn't always keep up with trends.
Right.
with the newer
I
trends.
have a comment or a question too that intrigues me, and I always get into this. When we start looking at workplace violence, do we have incidents more that impact women are the perpetrators?
Oh, that's good.
I would say wholeheartedly that women are less likely to be a perpetrator. Let me say that. The statistics don't show that women are more involved in that. It's usually a male, and in some cases it does stem from domestic violence. You have an ex-husband or somebody that, they're engaged in domestic violence outside of work, and it's something that spills over into work, and that's one of the types of workplace violence.
Just one of the things, the reason why I asked that is because I noted when you hear these things that happen on the job, you don't hear like a woman went to work and shot her husband.
No, you don't hear that. You really
You
don't.
so I just happen to think, or
Very
shot
rare.
up a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if we had a few stats on that. So anyway,
It's not as prevalent
Yeah,
it's not very prevalent.
Amen.
Not at all.
And then so when we're looking at workplace violence, has it increased over the past 20 years? Is it stable or has it decreased?
So mass shootings have increased
Yeah.
over
Oh,
time,
yeah.
They have.
but I want to say from 2017 to 2018, I want to say the numbers dropped, but just a little bit, very little bit. But again, the things that don't get discussed are actually all the workplace assaults. You get to see all the shootings on the news because they get highly sensationalized, but you don't get to see the random, the two guys got into a fight at the loading dock. You don't really hear about those type of issues. So when you're comparing the 346 shootings to 18,000 workplace assaults, the numbers can be pretty pretty eye-opening, if you will.
Are there other companies doing the job that you're doing? Do you have competition in what you've come up with?
I do have competition, but I also have colleagues. And I think there's a trend now that all of the folks that are engaged in threat management and workplace violence prevention and those things, we're really all trying to send the same message.
You should be collaborating.
And in some cases we do. I do have other organizations that I work, or other companies specifically that I work with that specialize in similar offerings. We do different in some areas, and that's where we partner up and help each other move things along, because the reality is not enough organizations are taking the appropriate steps to keep their workplace safe. And what do you hear time and time again from corporate America? Employees are our most important resource, right? Is that really true?
No.
That brings up another question too.
I knew it would.
I'm just
It had to.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like when you start looking at the sector, you got private sector, public sector. Where do you see most of it are the trends in terms of public versus private in workplace violence?
Obviously there was the most recent shooting in Virginia Beach.
Yeah.
But that was a public organization.
Right,
that was
right. One of the few. You don't
Yes.
hear too many.
I think it's across the spectrum.
Okay.
I really think that if somebody is working in a company or a public organization and nobody's listening to them, again, it all starts with a grievance. If their grievances aren't being addressed and they feel that they have no other alternative but to bring a gun to work and then start shooting people, a lot of things have gone wrong.
Well, I'm really wanting to applaud you for your company and what you're doing, and I hope that your listeners out there are taking heed to what Dave is saying, because there is a growing incidence in this, and even in schools. And I'm going to have a gentleman on the show. We're going to talk about school safety, because I knew he has things that you can do that children can do.
Of course.
And so one of the things too. Are you also talking about things that employees can do? Because like in this incident in Virginia Beach, somebody actually threw themselves over a person and saved a person's life. So are there in your program that you administer and so forth, do you talk about how people in the employment sector, how you can prevent or help yourself or help another person?
Absolutely.
Should something occur.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I teach, how to respond to active threats,
Okay.
how to manage threats, how to, give people an idea of like, hey, these are the signs and symptoms of what to look for, and these are the things that you should be reporting, because that's the other problem. Again, people don't want to be involved, but you really need to report stuff. If you see stuff that's out of the normal and and it's concerning you, then you really need to report that to somebody in
But Dave, what if somebody shows up and he has or she has a gun? What do you do? That's what I'm talking about, because it gets down to some of the stuff.
Methodology,
What do you do?
the current methodologies that's out there is one that's very popular, and many of your listeners have probably, and viewers have probably seen this, is the run, hide, fight through Department of Homeland Security. And run, hide, fight is really, if you have the ability to run and get out of the area and leave immediately, if somebody comes in with a gun and starts shooting and you're able to get out, then you get out. Right. If you're unable to get out, then they say you should hide, and you should barricade yourself into like an office and push, books and desks, or bookcases and desks and other things. Silence your phone. Stay on the phone with 911 if you're able to call 911. And then in a very last resort, and this is something that only that person can decide at that time, if they're in close proximity to someone who's shooting and they have no other alternative, then they're going to need to physically try to fight with that person and try to disarm them, try to take them to the ground, prevent them from trying to kill other people. And the ideal situation though is to get away. Get away, call 911.
Okay.
Immediately distance yourself, call 911. If you have to barricade yourself or hide, stay in there, call 911, and wait for law enforcement to contact you. We're coming.
Okay, so what if, Matt, what if you're on an airplane?
Okay.
Because that was me. It was right after 9/11. I'm on an airplane, and there's a gentleman who, it was the time where you cannot bring no water on the plane.
Right.
Remember?
Yeah.
So I was flying from Boston to California with my husband and my 4 kids, right? And they were young at the time. And so this guy comes in with all the look, what they would look like, the sideburns, but I didn't connect the dots because I was packing when I heard that news thing come on.
Of course.
So long story short, he hid a cup of water underneath his seat. And when I was kind of like, oh, that's odd, nothing connected. There were a couple of things. I saw him looking up at the baggage thing, nervous, like really nervous,
Fidgety.
with his fingers and fidgety. And then when the lights came on, where you could actually go to the bathroom, he got up with a cup of water really fast, and someone stepped in front of him, and he turned in this slow, controlled rage and sat. And all of a sudden, everything I saw on the news was like brrrr in my head, and I was like, oh my gosh, who am I? Who am I? Who am I gonna tell? Like, I'm like a mother of 4 on the plane.
Right. Panicking.
I literally had a whole battle going on in my head. So grateful. I spoke to the airline attendant right there, and kind of secretly, and she went and talked to him and came back to me and said, Kim, ma'am, I think he's fine. He's fine. Well, when the lights went down, he pulled up a computer that literally had a picture of a bathroom sink and delete, delete. I was like,
Right.
I was like, now what do I do? So I made sure that I went back there, and I was like, you need to tell the pilot now.
Sure.
I was like, my babies are not going to die in this flight. We are not going to die in this flight.
We are not
this
doing
is
it.
what I saw.
I heard that.
Okay. So long story short, we're alive. And Homeland Security was called, and that was taken care of.
Good.
But I know what it feels like.
But you know why, right? You know why that got taken care of, right?
Tell me why.
Because you reported it.
And
that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
And
It was scary to report
and that's the
that.
real message
That's
I want to
the
get out to the
message.
viewers
Yeah.
is
Report.
again,
report.
see something, say something.
Right.
Even if you're unsure, it's better to report something. And that the other part of that is some people feel like, well, I'm going to get somebody in trouble unnecessarily. Well, if you see things that are out of the ordinary, you should be reporting it, and that at least then you can remove all doubt at that point, right?
Yes.
Do we have time
Well,
for
Dave-
one more question?
No,
or
we
no?
don't. We're run out of time right now. I'm sorry.
It was juicy
But
too, y'all.
it was juicy. But we'll be the next show. Dave, where can people get a hold of you? Should they need your services?
Again, my name is Dave Weiner. I'm the CEO of Secure Meausres LLC. They can reach me at Dave at secure-measures.com or at 310-507-1493.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank you guys. This was a great discussion.
Thank you.
We'll take your question on break.
Absolutely.
But thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you,
you.
Imani. You were great. Thank you, Kim. My God. Thank you, guys. And thank the audience. We appreciate you for being here today to be on this very, very severe conversation. It is severe and very timely. So I want you out there to have a very blessed week. And we're going to see you next week with another topic that you've got to be sure to watch this show. And this is Dr. Barbara Young signing off until next week. If you got any questions or comments, no, don't give them to me. No, positively, yes. Info@transformationforsuccess.com. Bye-bye.